gives ire to these animals. They leap up and chew apart your starships.
You know they have flyers, right? Somebody needs to school you on the Mutalisk. The Mutalisk is the Zerg's hit-and-run style aerial harassment unit. They can be morphed from larvae so long as a spire exists on the map. Their basic stats: production cost of 100, build time of 24 seconds, 120 life, and 0 base armor. Their attack is a bit special because they technically hit up to 3 targets per attack. Their Glaive Worm attack deals 9 damage to the primary target, then bounces to a second target for 3 damage, and then bounces to a third target for 1 damage. Lastly, they have a passive ability, Tissue Regeneration, which allows mutas to regenerate their health much more quickly than other Zerg once they are out of combat. Mutalisks require an extensive amount of control and awareness to be effective. Favoring mobility over durability, it is not wise to use them in direct combat unless you heavily outnumber the enemy or they lack anti-air capabilities. That said, they are an awesome tool to knock your opponent off balance, go after worker lines, disrupt reinforcements, and assume general map control. If your opponent is not ready to deal with mutas, the game might simply end with the first attack. I can't talk about mutas without discussing how to micro or control them. Rarely will you want to just issue an attack move and forget about them. Instead, there's 2 prevailing tactics to use: grouping or magic boxing. Grouping is exactly what it sounds like. You spam-click movement commands to try and corral and clump the mutas up into one ball. This allows every Mutalisk to fire its attack more consistently, and gives you the best chance at one-shotting something before it can fight back. The major risk with using grouping is that versus splash damage, all of your mutas are next to each other, so that's probably not going to be very healthy. Magic boxing, on the other hand, is a more defensive way to approach enemies. Instead of issuing many move commands to try and clump them up together, you instead let the flock spread out naturally and issue a move command that is far away from the mutas. The mutas will fly towards the destination, but maintain their formation. When it comes time to attack, instead of using an attack or an attack move command, you're going to fly the mutas over the target and use the hold position key. If done correctly, the flock will stop where they are and target the closest enemy while maintaining their spread out formation. This is great for engaging splash damage targets such as Thors, since the mutas are more spread out during their approach. As a final note, mutas do have the standard damage and armor upgrades available at the Spire, but the damage upgrades do not scale equally across all of the bounces in their attack. The initial attack's damage increases by 1 point per upgrade, standard. The second hit, after the first bounce, will only increase by 0.33 per upgrade, and the final hit increases by 0.11 per upgrade. To summarize, an unupgraded muta will hit for 9, 3, and 1. A fully upgraded muta will hit for 12, 4, and 1.33. Mutalisks are extremely mobile, deadly to small groups of units, and regenerate quickly if they get away. That said, they are essentially glass cannons in direct combat, and highly vulnerable to splash or area of effect damage. They also require a great deal of control and babysitting from their Zerg master. Exploiting these weaknesses takes a bit of game sense, some control of your own, and most importantly, staying calm. Include units in your army that deter the mutas from attacking at all, or heavily punish them for committing. Splash damage can be great, but there's some good single target options too. Let's delve into each faction's options. Terran has a nice advantage over the other factions. Their basic unit shoots up. Stim and Combat Shield Marines are seriously awesome versus mutas. As long as you're careful versus banelings, you can be much more cost efficient than the muta player and be confident in a direct fight. Interested in some splash damage? Your options are Widow Mines and Thors. Mines are slightly more risky, but also less expensive. If you go with Widow Mines, set them up in places that can protect worker lines or serve as cover for your main army. They take some preemptive thought and setup time, but it's only 4 shots to vaporize every muta in sight. An added benefit to going mines is their ridiculous strength versus Lingbane as well. Thors are a bit more bulky and have more range than the Widow Mines, but their weakness is that they can be overwhelmed. Try to keep them with your Marine army or near missile turrets if they're going to be used defensively. Protoss, if you are a no-good Void Ray lover, mutas can absolutely ruin your day. Counter options are a bit more limited than the other factions though. Archons are a great option for including in your main army as a muta deterrent. Their splash attack is powerful, but not perfect. They're simply too slow to give chase to the mutas, and they can't be everywhere at once. That's where these guys come in. Behold the Phoenix. Incredibly fast flying, bonus damage versus light units, and the ability to shoot while moving. These guys are a Mutalisk's worst nightmare. As soon as you see a muta, hell, as soon as you see a spire, Phoenix production should start. If the Zerg commits to a Mutalisk flock, you commit to Phoenix. Get a fleet beacon for the anion pulse crystal research, which increases the Phoenix's attack range, and get ready to micro. One secondary benefit to having a few Phoenixes is that you can use their graviton beam ability to pick off any ground units too, once the mutas are gone. Bug lovers, Zerg players, it is quite common for at least one player to go mutas in ZVZ. They're a decent option if you want to shake up the Roach Wars. Mutas can be relatively countered by any combination of the following: Hydralisks, Corruptors, Infestors, Vipers, or more Mutalisks. Hydralisks are a little bit like Archons. Excellent in a direct fight against the Mutalisks, but they're unable to really chase them. Corruptors can win easily as well, but they're pretty worthless if your opponent decides to follow up with a Roach Flood. Infestors with their fungal growth ability, and Vipers with their parasitic bomb, are great additions to either of the other options if you have the control for them, but they should not be depended upon as the sole source of anti-muta. Lastly, there's always the option of building more mutas than your opponent. If you go this route, get the Flyer Carapace upgrades from the Spire. Personally, I like to build either Hydras or more mutas, depending on the tech choice, and eventually add in Vipers, since they are so helpful versus other compositions as well. I'm looking at you, Blinding Cloud. I also want to note that Spore Crawlers annihilate mutas better than any other static defense option, thanks to the bonus damage they get versus biological targets. Mutalisks can make quite the fearsome force, winged nightmares that can blot out the sun. Can you fight in the shade? Thank you very much for watching. I hope this was helpful and that you have a great day.